Come home, go big, and have a ball. From southwestern Pennsylvania, the 50th District, I'm State Representative Bud Cook. We want to welcome and thank you for attending our 5th annual Women in Leadership. Several years ago, actually probably longer, 7 or 8 years ago, my chief of staff, Rachel Wilson, came up to me and said, you know, there's really no good role models for young ladies to kind of take a look at. What we should consider is bringing speakers in that you could get a chance, that you could meet them, see and hear where they started, their journey, and how they got to the point they are. There's a couple people, groups of people that I'd like to thank. Penn West has always been so very gracious. We want to thank them for the accommodations and that they're providing us today. The crew that really never gets acknowledged are these two gentlemen here that are in charge of our video. They do an excellent job, whether we're in Harrisburg, out in the field, whatever. They're great to work with. And then there's Team 50th. And two of our guys are here today. They were at the table when you signed in. There's several other ones. And I actually have other teams. Some are in Harrisburg, and then there's the political side on the other part of it. The support that we have from Harrisburg and our guys are great. They kind of pass me around and pass me off depending on where I'm at and what I need to do that particular day. Our speakers today are outstanding. They join a group that has preceded them in sharing with young people like yourself that started out exactly at the same place and have made a journey and taken different directions. So we hope to provide them as an example for you to not only hear their story, but also as a reference point for you to question. Okay? Remember, we had this talk about questioning afterwards. I'm going to be coming around with the microphone. I wanted to share with you just very, very briefly 3 of the projects that we have going. You heard my intro, come home, go big, and have a ball. How many people have ever been on Interstate 70 coming east to west and go across the Spears-Bell Vernon Bridge? Okay. When you come across that bridge, you're leaving Westmoreland County, Fayette, coming into Washington County. If you go 10 miles north on the Mon, you're in Allegheny. If you come 15 south, you're in Greene. Almost anything that you wanted to do, you can do within that 5-county region. People don't realize this, but the second largest industry in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, travel and tourism. And we do an absolute terrible job promoting our travel and tourism. And this is coming from a person who serves on the Travel and Tourism Committee. The other part of the program that we have going that we're excited about is we have student advisors to the representative. And we just met last week with our student advisors from California. The last week before that was Bentworth. We have Mapletown coming up. There's 10 school districts. It's extremely important to me that you, our young people, our future, understand what there is to do here, see here, and participate in here. You're our future. You're our hope. I'm done with adults. You guys are it. Okay, because anything's possible when it's your age. Anybody ever hear of Blessing of the Baylors? And I don't expect you do. About 5 years ago, a small community in Greene County at Rice's Landing, a farmer had an incident with his baler making hay that ran into a priest. The story got told, boom, it's a great story. And we were actually fortunate for some reason to be at the very first Blessing of the Baylors. We took that to Harrisburg. It's become one of the largest events in Harrisburg now. We do it on behind where the fountain's at. This past May, they had to shut down the complex twice because there were so many people in the building. So it's really kind of neat out there. I'm going to kind of wrap it up on my end. Please enjoy today. Remember, the only dumb question is the question you don't ask. So as our presenters are here, I've asked them to share their life story with you, where they started, how they've kind of moved along to get where they're at in life today. So first up is a colleague. We just got back from Harrisburg last night, what, probably around 9:30? Yeah, I tell everybody, since I've become a representative, I work half days. And they kind of look at me and I say, yeah, 7 to 7 on a good day. People don't see all the behind the scenes stuff. They only see us waving and in the photographs, all the committee meetings and everything that you have. So Charity Grimkrupa is our representative from Fayette County. She's in her second term?
Yes.
Very good. She did an outstanding job lighting them up on the House floor yesterday, and I'm thinking, yeah, that's Charity. She's going to be there tomorrow. So with that, Charity, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Cook, for that kind shout out, but also for the invitation to be here today. And I have to say, when I first got the invitation, I had to pause for a second because I don't necessarily consider myself a leader. I am a little bit of a lone wolf and pretty independent, but I'm very happy to be here. I'm happy to see so many faces and so many young faces, and I'm going to tweak what I prepared just a little bit to really. There's so much that I could tell all the women in the group, but particularly the young women. I could talk to you for hours. So somebody at 10 minutes, go ahead and start waving at me to get off the stage. But I walk in faith, and my faith has grown stronger the older that I've gotten. And the remarkable thing is when you walk in faith, you know that every rejection that happens in your life, it's putting you on the path that you're supposed to be on. And sometimes that rejection doesn't feel good, but years later, you're gonna learn that it wasn't a no, it was a not right now, or something bigger, something better. So keep that in mind. And I could stand here for 2 hours and tell you about all the different times that I was rejected in my life, things that I wanted, things that I thought I was suitable for. And every time that door closed, I can look back now and say, thank you, God, that was preparing me for something that I didn't even know was going to be in my path. But when I started to think about what I was going to say today, there was advice that my father had given me early on in life, and I grew up with 3 boys. I've got 3 brothers, mostly guy cousins that I was closest to. I can honestly say too that until I served in this position now, I don't know that I ever truly experienced sexism. When I was a little girl in my family, it didn't matter. There was one place that it did, and my brothers took care of that. I grew up in a farming family, and my dad, and I don't think it was about me being a girl. I think it was about the fact that I'm a little bit clumsy. But he wasn't crazy about me driving the tractors and driving the farm equipment. So when we were making hay in the summer times, usually I was the one that was stacking on the wagon, stacking the hay, and my brothers were throwing it up to me. But for whatever reason, my father was hesitant to put me on the tractor and let me run the equipment. And one summer, my dad was a newer attorney, and he wasn't there. And my older brother, that's a colonel in the Marine Corps now, he was like, Charity, today's the day. We need somebody on the tractor. And he didn't, true Marine Corps fashion, never looked back. But there will be times in your life as a woman that there are people that think you can't do something because you're a woman. Don't listen to them. And there are going to be times, whether it's because of your sex or not, that people are going to tell you to sit down, maybe don't rock the boat. Don't listen to them. Be educated, be informed, be passionate, because God gave each and every one of us our own talents and skills. And if you recognize those talents and skills and what you're truly passionate about, and you use that to guide you in where you go in life, you'll realize that that's a calling and it's a God-given gift. And someday, if God were to ask you when you get to heaven, what did you do with those skills and talents that I gave you? And for everybody in this room, it's something different. But if God were to ask you that someday, how are you going to respond to him? But anyway, back to the advice that my father gave me as a younger a girl. He said, it's okay if your goals in life change, but you should always have goals. And those goals may change, but be focused until they do. And when I was coming out of high school, I wanted to be a large animal vet. I went to Penn State University Park as an animal science major. The problem with that, and I didn't realize it at the time, I was pretty much a straight A student through high school. I got to Penn State main campus, and I got a C in chemistry. And I had this pretty stern advisor, and there were some really great advisors in the Animal Science Club, or Animal Science College, and I didn't get one of those. I got an advisor that said, if you can't do better than a C in chemistry, you have no business being on the vet path. He didn't say, hey, let's get you a tutor. He didn't say, hey, you need to just buckle down and maybe study a little bit harder. He was adamant that I had no place in that field. And I thought about it, and I'm too headstrong to be crushed by comments like that. But when I really stopped and reflected, what I was doing really well in was all my writing classes. I was doing really well in my history classes. And the classes that I really, really loved to take was any class that had anything to do with the Revolutionary era, with our founding fathers. And again, that goes back to the passion and the talents and the skills that God gave you. But I couldn't get enough about the Revolutionary era. And these, when you talk about not just our founding fathers, but our founding mothers, the wives and the daughters that helped shape this nation, these were ordinary people who risked everything for extraordinary ideas. They recognized that our rights weren't created by government, they were created by God. And they wanted to ensure that the government was of the people, by the people, and for the people, and that they must never infringe upon those God-given rights. And that truth still gives me chills. So I followed that passion. I took every class that I could regarding the American Revolution, and I graduated with a history degree, and then I went on to law school. And in law school, I started dating my husband, who I'd actually had a crush on since I was about 12. He was one of my older brother's age, and they wrestled together. So every week I'd go to the wrestling match, not to watch my brothers, but to watch who would later become my husband. But he did not really stop to pay attention to me until I was in law school, and he likes to tease me and say that he didn't marry me, he married my law degree. But my husband is a really, really sweet man. And he has been, and this is something I'm going to add on since I'm looking at some young faces, when you choose the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, you are making an incredibly important decision, because your success in life, and I forget what the exact statistic is, but there's this insane percentile of people that will say that your success in life is determined by who you marry. And if there's a piece of advice I can give you on that, make sure you marry a kind person, somebody that's always going to treat you with respect and dignity. Kindness first, and then second, I would say, is a strong work ethic. You don't want to marry somebody that's going to be sitting on the couch playing video games when you're out hustling and making a good life for you and your family. So we got married in my second year of law school, and I had our first child over Christmas break of my third year of law school. So that was a whirlwind and a big challenge. But honestly, those years taught me a lot about faith and about balance, because life doesn't pause while you chase your goals. Please don't think that you have to wait until the perfect time to start a family. There's never a perfect time. And sometimes your greatest blessings and your biggest challenges, they can come hand in hand. So fast forward, my husband and I have 3 children. In In 2015, there was a local magistrate. So we're both self-employed. I'm a young attorney, 3 children. We're farming families, so we're still actively making hay, raising cows, have horses. So we're super busy. But in 2015, there was a local magistrate who had been the magistrate for years and years and years, and he decided that he was going to retire. And people came out of the woodwork to run for that position. I was a young attorney. I have a love of justice, a professional background, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for this. I'd never been interested in politics, never, ever. And I was actually embarrassed at the time because even though a judge is not, you're not a politician, but you've got to go through the political race to become elected. And I was embarrassed at the time when asked about my voting record. I had not voted in every election. That's something that I have since changed. But fast forward to 2015, the fall of 2015, I lose that race by, I think, 120 votes, which means that if I could have convinced 61 of those people to vote for me, I would have been a magistrate. And I'll tell you, had I been that magistrate, I never would be where I'm at now. I would have become rooted in that. I would have become content in that, and it would have been the way I probably would have spent the next 30 years of my life. But I learned 2 very, very, very important things during that race. One is that you have to make educated choices about who you're voting for. If you're just going to the polls and you're just, doing name recognition, or you're voting based on what somebody else tells you, you're really doing yourself a disservice, because your power as a citizen is in that ballot box. So do your research, make educated choices based on your values and your principles on who you're voting for. The second, and I would submit maybe the more important of the 2, is that if good, honest, ethical people don't step up and run, nothing is ever going to change. So we need people, I'm a firm believer, we need people in Harrisburg, in DC, on the school boards that are honest and ethical, and they're looking at that role as a way to serve the community and not as a way to line their pockets or fuel their egos. But what I didn't realize about that 2015 race was it wasn't rejection. That was a particular instance when God was saying, he was using that as a foundation for things later to come. So after 2015, I kept in contact with some of the people that I had met and formed relationships with and who had become friends. Again, not wanting at all to be involved in politics. I was a lawyer. I've got a love of justice. The judicial route was the way I wanted to go. It still may be the way I end up going. But in 2022, my predecessor, the person who was the state representative for my area before me, decided after the primary election, so you guys are young, so you may not know, there's a primary election in the spring where each party decides who's going to be their candidate in the fall. So my predecessor had won the primary election, and for reasons that are his own, after the primary, he decided he was going to take his name off of the ballot. And in that particular year, there was some legal challenges to the primary election, and there was a big dispute at the state level. And so it wasn't until later, almost the fall time, before the state certified the election. So my predecessor couldn't take his name off the ballot until then, and his replacement couldn't be chosen until then. I know it's a complex process, but there's basically something called a conferee process, where the members of a particular party who are elected representatives vote on who's going to be the replacement. At that particular time, there had been a different person who the good old boys were putting up that they wanted to be the next person on the ballot. And I knew that person, and I thought to myself, this is nobody I trust. This is nobody that I trust to represent me in Harrisburg. And I prayed on it, and shockingly, my husband was supportive of the idea. And up until the time I served as state representative, we'd never spent more, other than maybe one vacation and one hunting trip for him, we'd never spent more than a single night apart here and there. So this has been a really big life adjustment. So when we talked that through and he was supportive of me, it was kind of shocking, but prayed on it. And then I won the conferee vote in 2022, which would put me on the ballot because of the relationships that I formed in 2015. So just to recap, I know because I'm going down a rabbit trail. 2015, I lost the election by really what is not a lot of votes. But what I did win was the respect of people in the community who then later were the decision makers in 2022 that voted to put me on the ballot. And then I got on the ballot and I won that race, and here I am. And I could tell you that it is the most challenging, frustrating thing that I've ever done before. But I will tell you that the love of the Constitution and our founding fathers and my knowledge of the Constitution, all of those things that I was passionate about in undergraduate school, and even in my private law practice, it took an organic turn to defending people whose constitutional rights had been violated. The unlawful arrest, excessive force, retaliation for exercising your freedom of speech. Those were the cases that my law practice organically took an interest in. So when I got to Harrisburg, and Representative Cook can vouch for me before he gives me the hook up here, I'll be the first person to stand up and say, if you vote for this, you're violating the oath you took to uphold and defend the Constitution. And I'll tell you, if you don't know the Constitution, get in touch with Representative Cook or myself. We can get you copies of the Constitution, but really educate yourself on what your rights are, because our Constitution is what separates us from every other nation on earth, because it recognizes that we have rights that nobody should be able to take away from us.
You did it yesterday on the House floor, if you want to go back.
But I do know I'm kind of a quiet person until you put a microphone in front of me. But one thing I want to touch on is authenticity. And authenticity and leadership. And what I said earlier about, I don't necessarily consider myself a leader, but I am authentic. And you can ask anybody that knows me. I don't necessarily have a filter. If you want to know how I feel, all you have to do is ask me. And I think that people respect me for that, because they know at least that I'm being honest to them in terms of where I stand, and they don't have to second guess that. But this world has enough fake people in it. Everybody's got a filter, everybody's got a brand, everybody has a perfect vision of themselves to show the world. But that's not what people need in terms of leadership. They need what's real. Authenticity builds trust. It inspires others. It gives permission for the next generation of women to lead boldly and unapologetically as themselves. Your authenticity is your authority. And when you lead with honesty, humility, and heart, people notice. So I'm going to skip to the end here. Someday, you all were going to go on to lead in your families, in businesses, in classrooms, your household, and in the community. Be bold enough to set goals. Even if those goals change, it's okay, but set goals and work towards them. Be faithful enough to let them change. Be strong enough to trust God's plan when yours falls apart. And be authentic. Because when you lead with faith, you serve with love, and you show up as your true self, there's no limit to what God can do through you. Thank you.
So blessed to have a colleague like that on the House floor. She's talked more in her first term than I did in 8 years on the House floor, so there's different callings. I did want to share with you a little bit about my family. I have 3 sisters. I had a brother, so there were 5 of us total. All of us held a class office in high school. Now, my sisters are very, very competitive. They make crafts at Christmas time, but it's not only who can make the best craft, it's who can make the best craft the fastest and finish first. So they do that. But the one who's really kind of driven was my mom. 90 years old, little short, boom. First time I ran, I had enough money for 10 signs, 4x8s. Putting them out there by myself, hanging them up. I come dragging in one night. one sign left in her garage. She says, "What are you going to do with that sign?" And I said, "Mom, I'm getting them out there as fast as I can." She gets a big smile on her face and she says, "Ain't doing no good in my garage, is it?" 85 years old, had never been involved in politics in her life. I knew when I returned from Harrisburg, every time we were in session, she had a list ready to go. Why did this happen? Why did you do this? Boom, 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 boom. So it's never too late to get involved at the same time. Our next speaker is just amazing, the job they've been able to do with the operation up in Washington. Tracy, it's your show.
Thank you so much. So I get the honor of following up where I could literally just listen to you all day talk. Like Charity said, you know, when I was asked to come here, I did the same as her, and I don't consider myself a leader, but it feels great to know that Representative Cook thinks of me as a great enough leader to come here and talk to you. And I do a lot of things. I talk in front of people, and I tell you, I am nervous. It's okay to be nervous. I didn't bring a big, long sheet, but my biggest recommendation is bring a list. I'm a list person, go by it, and if I forget something, it's okay, because only I know I forgot it, right? So as I'm gonna start by telling you a little bit about myself. So as Representative Cook said, my name is Tracy Liberator. I'm the Executive Director of the Bradford House Historical Association. So what is that? It is located in Washington County, right on Main Street. Started as the Bradford House Museum, built in 1788. It's a National Historic Landmark. So I was running the museum. But over time, it's become more than just a museum. But I'm going to back up and tell you a little bit about myself. So I grew up in a house that both my parents were in finance. My dad worked at the Federal Reserve. They met there, and my mom had to quit because they were getting married. Back in the day, she couldn't work in the same place. So every night at dinner, my dad told me not to go into finance. And like many young teenage girls, what did I do? I went into finance. I went to school at Robert Morris. I got a business degree with finance and management, and I started working at a bank just like my parents. So now I'm at the dinner table every night talking to them, and they're like, "We told you not to go into it," but I loved it. When I was in high school, I did a lot with business. I was, back then we had DECA, which I'm not sure is around anymore. It was just, it was the Distributive Education Clubs of America. We used to compete on like business stuff, everyday things that people had to go through, and I enjoyed it. So I thought finance was the right thing for me. Right out of college, I got a job at a bank. I was there 18 years until a bank merger, and I lost my job. Came home, and my dad was like, "See, this is why you don't go into finance, because there's always change." But do you know what? There's change in everything. That's one of the things that I was going to talk about. I am a true believer in change. I think change is good. Sometimes it's hard, but you know what? Those pain points are the things that make us stronger, that we can get through. So I'm home. I have 3 small kids. I've lost my job working at a bank for 18 years. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do now? So my kids went to a small Catholic school in Canonsburg, so I started helping at the school, getting involved. Get involved. Get involved in things that you enjoy. It is amazing what comes of it. You meet people, you learn about new businesses, you learn about other things. So I get involved with the school and join the school board, start running events, and start really enjoying my free time. Well, I still had it because, again, 3 small kids at home, really needed to work. And a lady came to me, it was my friend's mom, and said, "Have you ever heard of the Bradford House? I'm on the board." And I'm like, "History? I'm a business major. I don't know anything about history. I'm bad at geography. I'm bad at history." And she's like, "Come to the house, and you will fall in love with it. It's what we do to keep it going." Something you should know about a National Historic Landmark, there is no federal funding. All the money comes from grants, fundraising. We can get federal grants, but it's the community that keeps it going. So I'm like, sure, I'll come. She goes, "Oh, just 10 hours. So 10 hours, 20 hours, 40 hours, 80 hours. Now I'm on salary. Now I've been there 15 years. fast forward to what I was saying before, that standalone house museum is one of 4 of our sites. So we have the Bradford House, and directly across the street during COVID we opened the Whiskey Rebellion Education Visitor Center. You know, COVID was a challenge for many people. The good and bad of being the only full-time employee, I never, like I said, missed a step. I started working on the Whiskey Rebellion Visitor Center. I was able to do everything through conference calls, visit people with a mask on. So when COVID is over and we are able to get back to business, we had a new place to open. So many of my other nonprofit friends either were furloughed because they have many employees, or they didn't open back up. There were all these things, and I felt really bad going places and saying how great COVID was for us because I used that time to do something good. I'm a person who always likes to be busy and be involved. Volunteering. We wouldn't exist without our volunteers. I was saying earlier to a few people, my youngest volunteer is 12. The reason I go with 12 is the parents have to drop them off. The parents have to be comfortable dropping them off. Always an adult there. I'm always there, or I have another adult there. But our youngest volunteer is 12. My oldest volunteer is 86. I have over 100 volunteers who help me throughout. I am the only full-time employee. I have 10 part-time seasonal staff. But the volunteers are what make it. There's some sayings with volunteers. You cannot fire a volunteer. You have to look at volunteers. They are there because they choose to be there. I have somebody who will say to me, well, she's not doing it right. Well, then explain to her the way to do it right. She is here because she chose to be here. It's not like we're paying her to be here. So I value my volunteers more than anything else I value in the day because they're there because they want to. A little bit about my family. So I mentioned about those 3 little kids who are not so little anymore because I've been at the museum 15 years now. My oldest is 25. My daughter has moved to Portland, Maine. That is a challenge. It's a change that you can't do anything about. She has made the decision to go to Portland, Maine. I miss her terribly. But she has learned from me the value of volunteering. She is a chemical engineer. She went to school in New York, became a chemical engineer, moved to Maine. She works 4/10s, which means she works Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and is off Friday. On Friday, she volunteers at a local food pantry. She just got her apron last month because they want to make sure that you've been there long enough and you're going to stay around. So she got she is the youngest person to ever volunteer at the food pantry and has an apron. It makes me so incredibly proud to know that my daughter is going and helping somebody. If you can volunteer, the changes and difference you'd make in the world are amazing. Sorry, I get emotional when I talk about it because it's so exciting for me. My middle child, Tyler, just graduated from Pitt. He is a computer software engineer. He has moved home to pay off some school debt. We talk about challenges, money. I don't think anyone can stand up here and say money is not a challenge. We didn't have the funds to pay for him to go to college, so he took out student loans. But as parents, he's moved back home, and we're supporting him that way. So I tell people, because I have somebody who will say, oh, I can't afford to go out. And I'm like, don't feel bad about it. You're not the only one who can't afford to do things. So I just want people not to feel bad about money. My third child is at Duquesne. He is a sophomore. He is in his 2nd year, and he is studying health sciences. So I have 3 kids, all different avenues, but as they were growing up, because I started so young with them, for me to say to them, hey, we're going to do this weekend, they don't even question me. And that's amazing. Like, you have to get out in the community, meet people, be involved. I have to say, being involved is very important. We talk about things. Representative Cook is everywhere, and I'm not really sure how. We just had an anniversary, and he was there. We have other events, and he is there. It's very, very important to be out and involved. People know who you are. If, say, down the road you're looking for a job, or you're looking for a job for your child or a friend, but you may know someone. It really helps to be involved in, with the community. So we were talking about, this is why I have my notes, leadership. It's, you know, charity started with, you know, I don't consider myself a leader. I'm not sure how many people in the room are familiar with the Athena Award. It is a leadership award. It is for all different kind of people. I was nominated for the 2025 Athena Award. The other nominees, so I was nominated with, you know, the nonprofit sector. There was a lawyer. There was a lady involved with the hospital, has been with the hospital for over 28 years. There was a lady from the Veterans Association. And, you know, there are these, what are these, programs, and they'll tell you about the people. So I go to this event, and I'm sitting there, because I was nominated, right? And I'm sitting there, and I'm reading all of them, and then they get up and spoke like we are here today. And I'm listening to them, and I'm like, oh, man, I would vote for the veteran. I am all about it. I have so many family members in the military. That is so impressive. And I'm going through, and I'm going through. And they make the announcement that I won. I couldn't even stand. And my son looked at me, and he goes, Mom, you told me you weren't going to win. And I said, I didn't think I was going to. I said, did you listen to what they've all said? All these women are inspiring. And I know that's what Representative Cook is trying to get out of today, for you to see that, you know, things happen. I mean, there are women you can talk to and different organizations you can join and be involved. But I sat there, and my other son, my daughter was in Maine, she couldn't make it. My other son was like, Mom, stand up. What is wrong with you? Stand up. And I'm like, and I got up there, and I wasn't even prepared, because I thought there was no way in the world I was going to win. I was up against the most impressive people, and I still, to this day, when people congratulate me, I say, what are you congratulating me for? And they're like, the Athena Award, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But my husband said it. He goes, Tracy, did you read everybody's? And I said, I did. He goes, did you read your own? Did you read all the things you do, the people you work with, the people you touch, the organizations you volunteer at? And he goes, why do you think you didn't win? And he's like, you won. So I'm here to tell you that things happen, things you just couldn't imagine would happen. I still, to this day, I mean, I love working with different people, but to, you know, it's just crazy to be invited here and for Athena. So, all right, I've talked about me. I've talked about challenges, challenge of money, things being out of your control. That's a challenge. My biggest challenge at work, which the young people won't understand as much, is lack of staff. I am the only full-time employee. We can't afford to have other employees. Many businesses that you'll become involved with or go to, be easy on them. There may only be one server. There may only be one cook. There are just not enough people out in the workforce right now. So I ask you to be kind to them. When I think of mentors, I think about that lady who asked me to come to the Bradford House. She was on the Bradford House board for 28 years. She was our longest standing. She is still involved. She is off the board because she is having sight problems. But I'll tell you what, I mean, how impressive. And she told me I would fall in love with the place. She told everyone she met that they would fall in love with the place. The other thing, when I'm thinking mentors or other nonprofit leaders, don't worry about asking questions. If you have any question on something, have someone you can call and ask the question to, bounce something off of them. Whether it's your best friend, whether it's your sister, whether it's your mom, have someone you can call and say, hey, I was just thinking about this. Does this make sense? Or I'm doing it this way. Would you do it this way? What do you do? I've developed a small group in Washington County. We get together once a month for lunch, and we talk about everything. We don't compete with each other. We're all nonprofit. It's not a competition. It's about helping each other. And those ladies, and I'm going to tell you, they're all ladies, which just, it wasn't intended to be a ladies group, but we are the ones that are there to support each other, and we are all involved in nonprofits. So my nonprofit friends are who I would say are my mentors. Thinking about advice, get involved. I know I've already mentioned that. I am, another thing that I do, I am the president of Destination Greater Pittsburgh. It is a tourism group outside of Pittsburgh, but Destination Greater Pittsburgh is the surrounding counties. I started attending their meetings 9 years ago just to talk about Washington County. I wanted people to come to the museum. I wanted them to come to see what Washington County has to offer. I want people coming outside of Pittsburgh. I've been the president for 4 years. Every month we go somewhere different. Today we are at the Duncan Miller Glass Museum in Washington, but we tend to go to all of them. It is great to get outside of your comfort zone, if that's the right word. When I first started, and it was, it's about the same amount of people in the room. It's very informal, but it's, you get up and you introduce yourself. The first time you get up and introduce yourself, it is nerve-wracking. Maybe the 100th time it's still nerve-wracking, but it gets easier the more you do it. And being involved helps that happen. I mentioned, I volunteer written down on my sheet so many times. Goals, another thing Charity mentioned, is huge. I am a list person. Like everything I do is a list, and once the list is done, I start another list. Don't be worried if you can't do everything on your list. Prioritize. If I have a list of 10 things, what is the most important thing? I know I have no time today, but what one thing can I do on that list? What is the most important thing to me? And that's how I get through the day. And to ask questions. I had mentioned that before. There is no dumb question. Questions are great. I'm usually the person sitting out there, and when people are speaking, I'm asking them questions. Questions sparks conversation, so sometimes it's not even about the question, it's about getting the audience engaged. So, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. No, I think I've covered everything. Short and sweet. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you have questions later, please ask. Thank you.
Are you guys kind of getting the idea of the resources that we have and what you're getting from here today? There's not a lot of places you can go to get a lot of good material like this. I did want to share 3 things with you. I put 2 business cards on every table. So if you could kind of pass those around and take a look at them. That's my official legislative business card as a representative. It is the only one like it in the House of Representatives. And what makes it like that is the district that I represent is above my name, not below my name. And I did that a purpose. I never want to forget who works for who in the job that I'm blessed and gifted to serve. They ran it 3 times wrong in Harrisburg. The worst mistake they did, they called me up and they said, but Representative, that's not how we do it in Harrisburg. And I said, I don't care how you do it in Harrisburg. That's how we're going to do it in the 49th and the 50th. The second piece of advice that I want to share with you, there's only one place that success comes before work, and that's in the dictionary. Never forget that. In order to get up here, I knocked on 20,336 doors. 2 things came out of that. Best shake I've been in since high school, and I'm a better human being. I had no idea how badly some of our fellow people were suffering during that if I don't take that walk. The last thing comes from our baseball coach. He lined us up one time, And he said, "Gentlemen, the Creator in his infinite wisdom gave you 2 ears, 2 eyes, and only one mouth of purpose. That has served me more in my lifetime than any other piece of advice. Keep your mouth shut, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and listen. And people will share good things, bad things, and a lot of things, and you become a human being because of that." Our third speaker kind of really has my heartstrings. If you've never been an entrepreneur, it's an adventure like no other one. And I always ask people, who does the business owner call in February in the middle of a snowstorm when nobody else can come in? The entrepreneur business owner doesn't get to do that. They have to go in regardless. So we're, again, very happy to have Stacy with us. Stacy, it's time.
Okay, so before I even start, I'm just going to say that falling behind these two amazing women is going to be next to impossible. So bear with me if I don't make eye contact. I kind of have a book, and I can almost guarantee I'm going to get emotional. Good afternoon, everyone. Before I begin, I want to take a moment to thank Representative Bud Cook and Rachel for inviting me here today. It is such a blessing to stand here before a room full of strong, inspiring, and faith-filled women who are making a difference in the world of business, leadership, and life. It's truly humbling to be here, not just to share my story, but to remind each of you that your story, no matter how hard it's been, still has a purpose. 3 years ago, I stood before many of you in a very different state. I was on crutches, physically weak, emotionally drained, and unsure of what my future would hold. Today, I stand here in stance control braces, stronger than I've ever been, not because my circumstances have changed overnight, but because my faith did. May 22nd, 2019, my life changed forever. At that time, I was an award-winning student athlete, excelling in honors and AP classes, and preparing for a future in pediatric occupational therapy. I was driven, determined, and full of plans for my life. But in a single moment, everything changed. While unloading a lamb from the back of a truck, I was kicked in the head. I fell to the concrete below, suffering a traumatic brain injury and functional neurological disorder. I woke up to a world I didn't recognize. I couldn't walk, I couldn't feel my legs, my speech was slurred, my vision was blurred, and my memory, both short and long-term, were gone. I went from being independent to completely helpless. And for a long time, I wrestled with God. I asked, why me? Why take everything away that I worked so hard for? But over time, I realized something more powerful. God wasn't punishing me. He was preparing me. He was stripping away everything I thought defined me so that he could rebuild me according to his purpose, not mine. The road to recovery was not easy. It was painful, slow, and uncertain. There were hospital stays, intensive therapies, and setbacks that made me feel like I was moving backward more often than forward. There were nights when I cried myself to sleep, wondering, would I ever walk again? But it was really in that valley that I began to truly hear God's voice. In the quiet of my struggle, he whispered, "My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness." 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. That verse became steady, unshakable, and true. Because when you can't depend on your own strength, you begin to understand the depth of God's strength. Through faith, perseverance, and the love of my family and community, I began to rebuild and regain my abilities, step by step, word by word, brick by brick, moment by moment. And through it all, God was teaching me, focus on your vision, not your circumstance. Because circumstances change, they shift, they test us, but vision, God's vision for our lives remains steady. After graduating high school, I decided to attend Full Sail University, where I found a new passion, media and photography. Having lost my memories, I developed a deep appreciation for capturing them, freezing those moments in time. Photography became more of an art for me. It became healing. Every picture I took helped me to rebuild pieces of myself that I thought were gone. Eventually, I launched my first business, Stacy's Free Spirited Media. It was creative, fulfilling, and deeply personal. But even as I grew in that work, I could feel God stirring something else inside me. A gentle nudge, a quiet whisper saying, "This is good, but this isn't the end. You're meant for more." And if you've ever heard that still small voice, you know, when God whispers, it's best to listen. See, life can change in an instant. One moment you think you have it all figured out, and the next, everything shifts. A diagnosis, a setback, a loss, a door slammed shut that you thought was meant for you. I've learned that those moments don't have to define you, but they can refine you. When life turned upside down for me, I had two choices: to let it break me or to let it build me. And I'll be honest, I didn't always choose the strong path. There were days of anger, tears, and asking God, why me? But slowly I realized something. Maybe the question wasn't why me, but what now? Maybe God wasn't punishing me. Maybe he was positioning me. Romans chapter 8, verse 28 says, "And we know now that all things work together for good, to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose." I didn't understand it at the time. In those quiet moments of doubt, when everything felt uncertain, I heard that whisper deep inside, "You're meant for more." I just kept ignoring it. I told myself, not me, not now. But the voice didn't go away. It grew louder, not in sound, but in strength. And that's when I realized purpose doesn't shout, it whispers. God doesn't always hand you a map. Sometimes he just asks you to take the next step in faith. That next step for me became Beauty Haven by Stacy Lynn, a place born not out of perfection, but out of prayer, pain, and perseverance. There was a time I questioned everything: my worth, my purpose, my ability to keep going. I was told no more times than I can count. And truthfully, there were days that I told myself no, when I doubted if I was ready, if I was capable, or if I was enough. But even in those quiet, broken moments, I could still hear that small voice whispering inside, "You are meant for more. Keep going. I am not finished with you yet." I wanted to create a space where beauty was not just skin deep, but soul deep. I wanted to open Beauty Haven, starting a business, but I wasn't just starting a business, I was launching a calling. I wanted to create a space where beauty wasn't just about appearances, but it was about empowerment. A haven where women could walk in and feel seen, celebrated, strong, inside and out. You see, beauty is more than just brows, facials, lashes, or waxing. It's about confidence. It's about walking out of that door knowing you're not just wearing the beauty. You are the beauty, because you've seen your own worth. I remember the first client who walked through my doors. She sat in my chair, and before we even started, she said, "Stacy, I just need to feel good again." That hit me hard, because I knew exactly what she meant. Sometimes it's not about a makeover, it's about reclaiming your reflection. And I thought, yes, God, this is what you meant. This is the more you were whispering about. If we only focus on what's in front of us, the pain, the setbacks, the no's, we'll miss what God is preparing for us ahead of us. And to the women here today who are standing on the edge of your dream, wondering if you're enough, let me tell you, start before you're ready. Trust before you can see and walk by faith, even if it is on shaky legs. Because when you put your vision in God's hands, He'll take what you thought was impossible and turn it into something purposeful. The road to leadership is not a straight path, especially for women. We lead while healing, we lead while mothering, we lead while grieving, building, and believing. And yet we lead with heart, with hustle, with hope. People see the business, the success, the smiles, but they don't always see the prayers whispered in the dark, the tears on the steering wheel, or the faith it takes to keep going when no one is clapping. But that is what makes women extraordinary. We carry grace like armor. We show up even when it hurts. To anyone sitting here today with a dream, maybe it's a business, a vision, or maybe you're just healing from something painful. I want to tell you this: start before you're ready. If you wait for the perfect moment, you'll miss your miracle. Don't wait for others to believe in you. Believe in yourself because God already does. You weren't created to shrink into small spaces. You were created to expand them. Your story, your scars, they all matter. They're not signs of failure. They're evidence of your faith. My journey has taught me this: when God closes one door, it's not rejection, it's redirection. And when everything feels like it's falling apart, sometimes it's just falling into place according to His plan, not yours. When life feels impossible, it's life-changing, not life-ending. Trust in God's plan, appreciate each day, never take the small moments for granted, because in those moments, those quiet, unseen battles, that is when He is shaping you for the bigger things ahead, as those small moments often turn into the biggest miracles. I stand before you today not as someone who has it all figured out, but someone who is still learning, still growing, still trusting. And I pray that my story reminds you God can use your pain as a platform and use your obstacles as the very thing that opens doors for others. Today, Beauty Haven is open not just because of beauty services, but because it's built on faith. It's proof that you can be soft yet strong, glamorous yet grounded, fierce yet faithful, and still build something that honors God. Every woman who walks through my doors is a reminder that we are not here just to look beautiful. We are here to be a reflection of God's beauty, grace, and purpose. As I close, I want to leave you with this thought. Don't let your circumstances define your calling. Let your faith define your future. God will use every trial to teach you, every setback to strengthen you, and every delay to prepare you. And when you stand on the other side of that storm, you'll realize He was never late. He was just getting you ready. So today I challenge you. Walk boldly in your purpose. Lead with faith, not fear. And never forget, your story isn't over. It's still being written by the one who writes the best endings. Thank you all so much for allowing me to share my heart and my journey. May we continue to rise, lift, and lead together with God always at the center.
Excuse me. Stacy doesn't know this, okay? But the last time she was here, this was the second time she was here, Lieutenant Colonel Representative Pennychuck was here. And she was so impressed by Stacy. She's now Senator Pennychuck. And she was just overwhelmed and taken. This was a lady that jumped out of planes in the Army. So it's her second time around. We really appreciate her story. Hope you guys enjoyed it. No. We got it. We understand. Very good. Very good. Thank you guys for coming. So what we'd like to do is kind of open it up to any questions we might have from the audience at this point. I'm not sure who it's coming at, so you guys will.
Okay, so I noticed a pattern in a lot of your speeches that being involved was like a very important aspect. Are there any like initiatives or events that you would recommend to like start getting involved in the community or locally?
There are so many. I don't know where to start. If you're not involved in faith is very important to me. So if that's something that that's important to you as well, you know, that's a good place to start. But and I think this goes back to what you're passionate about. If there's a particular area, I know one of a few times a year I get the wonderful communications team down to my district, and just a couple of places I can think of that are always looking for volunteers are your animal rescue centers. If you have any veteran organizations, homeless shelters, you know, if you're involved in politics, either side of the aisle, there's always room for input and volunteering there. So, you guys have anything like that?
I mirror what she said. What interests you? Think of that. I was going to give a shout out because she is actually in school here. She's our only student with us today. So hats off for you for showing up.
Thank you.
So think about what you're interested in, and then I know it sounds so lame, but a Google search of, you know, something that drives you. You want to enjoy when you get there. You want to have some. Animals is a great one. If you, oh my gosh, take dogs for a walk. It's so relaxing. But there are so many different options out there. Choose something that you like.
Perfect. That was all for me.
Anybody else? Very good. Unfortunately, our guys had to leave early. We would have had more questions, of course. It's very important to me personally that every year we try to provide young ladies with role models so they can hear these stories. I mean, I was blown away the first couple times that we did that, and we just needed to take that out so everybody had it. So we want to thank you very much for being here again, and we hope you can attend next year as well. Have a good, safe home drive. God bless.